The next morning was my aerial machine gun training with Danny. There was a helicopter from maintenance used for the new gunners and crew chiefs to be trained on. Shooting a machine gun was a dangerous business, especially under combat conditions, while 10 helicopters are landing close together and 6 infantry fellows are jumping out of each one of them, and everyone is in a hurry with a whole lot of shooting and confusion going on. The helicopter machine gunners are shooting coming into the landing zone and are shooting in the landing zone and shooting coming out of the landing zone. The M60 gunners are shooting in between helicopters and in between the infantry fellows in their fields of fire. It would be very easy to kill your own guys if you are not an expert with a machine gun. The safety of both the helicopter crews and the infantry, at the time of the insertion as the aerial attack is called, depends very much on the accuracy of the helicopter machine gunners. Danny showed me how to take apart, clean, and put the M60 30 caliber 7.62 mm machine gun back together. He used aircraft grease to lubricate the weapon. He also cut the spring down 2 loops. He said those 2 adjustments will make the machine gun shoot faster with less friction. He clipped an empty C-ration can where the ammo belt feeds into the weapon. And it is important to check your whole ammo belt for cleanliness and to make sure that the rounds are set right into the belt links. A lot of things can jam up a machine gun and it could cost many people their lives. He also showed me how to quickly unjam the weapon in case of various jams. We had to properly place the ammo belts into the minigun can that we used to hold and feed the ammo belt into the machine gun. The minigun can had to be tied to the machine gun post on the helicopter to prevent it from falling out in flight. There was a wire used so that the whole ammo belt did not slide out of the ammo can and trail along the helicopter, but undone when one is ready to shoot. On the left side of the helicopter in the rear was the tail rotor. If the ammo belt slid out still attached to the machine gun, it would trail flopping around in flight, and it could get caught in the tail rotor, and if that happened, the helicopter would start to spin around and crash in a fireball with everyone aboard being killed. The machine gun was mounted to a pole about 2 feet outside of the edge of the helicopter. The pole had a swivel mount on top, also greased with aircraft grease, and was secured by a quick release pin with a ring on it for quick detachment if need be, usually when shot down. The gunners were also tied into the helicopter by way of a belt and line so we would not fall out of the helicopter when shooting the machine gun, as the gunners were sometimes standing and leaning outside the helicopter while in flight. Sometimes the monkey belts, as we called them, would save a crew chief or gunner when they fell asleep in their gunner seat from sheer exhaustion. We carried 5 extra machine gun barrels, as sometimes the barrels would get so hot from firing that they would warp and jam up the machine gun. We wore thin leather gloves so that we would not burn our hands on the hot machine gun, and we wore steel chest plates and also sat on one for protection against 30 caliber rounds. We later tested a steel chest plate and shot an AK-47 round at it from about 50 yards. The round went right through the chest plate, but we figured if the bullet was from a longer range, it might not penetrate it. The machine gun was air-cooled, and the wind from flying and from the rotor blades let us fire the machine gun a long time before the barrel would get too hot and would warp. The machine gun would shoot 10 7.62 mm 30 caliber rounds per second. That round had the power to go through the body of 3 men and still keep going. We fired the machine gun like it was a garden hose. We pulled the trigger and would not let up unless one of our own guys jumped up in front of us and had to avoid hitting him. Then we would continue to fire. It took both hands to feed the ammo into the weapon and shoot the weapon at the same time. There was a lot to learn about machine guns on helicopters in combat. Danny and I put on our flight helmets so that we could speak to each other and the pilot over the noise of the helicopter and also the machine gun noise. We flew just outside of the perimeter in an open area used for practice. There were old 55-gallon drums to shoot at. On the first pass, I watched Danny feed the machine gun with one hand and shoot with the other. He was an expert for sure. He also was able to push the microphone button on a cord attached to the flight helmet while still shooting. The flight helmet had earphones on the inside and a microphone on a bar in front of one's mouth. The cord coming out of the helmet plugged into a radio control panel above one's head. Tricky situation. He said never use the sights on the machine gun. Only watch where your tracers are going and, if possible, where your rounds are hitting. To keep on target, stand up and lean out or whatever one has to do to swing the machine gun where one wants the rounds to hit. He emphasized that eventually swinging the machine gun around to hit your target is like pointing your finger at a target and hitting it dead center. It was a matter of eye and hand coordination. In the old Western days, a person would throw up a coin and a shooter could hit it with one round from a 6-gun shot from the hip. That shooter had hand and eye coordination. You will learn to do that eventually with enough shooting. You will be able to hit anything you see instantly that way. Your life and everyone's life on the helicopter depends on it. If a person does not become an expert with a machine gun, he will be turned down as a crew chief or gunner. We need only expert gunners, mechanics, and pilots to fly combat missions. It's how we stay alive. It was my turn to shoot as we zoomed by the targets at high and low levels. I shot for a while and then my machine gun jammed. A big no-no. I cleared the ammo belt and stuck it back in the machine gun and tried to fire, and it stopped once again. Danny laughed. I didn't. He showed me what went wrong. The ammo belt in the ammo can, through the constant vibration of the helicopter, went top down in the ammo can and was tangling up and causing the ammo not to feed as it should. Danny showed me how to untangle the ammo belt by grabbing the ammo belt in the can and flipping it right side up, and how to flip the machine gun receiver up and put the ammo belt back in quicker. He said to always check how your ammo belt is laying in the can, and try and keep the can level if possible. The pilot in the left seat would get the hot brass ejected from the machine gun down his neck if he did not button up well, and the hot brass would be rolling all over the floor or on top of the infantry unless a basket was put on the machine gun to catch the hot brass. The basket had a zipper on the bottom to let the brass drop out when too full, but did not work well. One had to cut some of the bottom out to let the brass drop. During high speeds, the brass could hit the tail rotor, causing damage, but not a serious malfunction usually. All sorts of considerations. I did pretty well shooting. Now Danny switched a toggle on the radio control box above me, and rock and roll started playing from the Armed Forces radio station in Saigon, and we went into another machine gun pass while listening to the Rolling Stones. Danny laughed and said, "How cool is this?" On our way back to our flight line, about 7 white birds were flying about 150 yards away above us. Danny said, "Watch the lead bird." He shot it down with about a 6-round blast from the machine gun without using anything but eye-to-hand coordination. I was astonished. I felt bad for the bird but was amazed at the accuracy. I asked how long it would take before I would get that good. He said about 2 weeks probably. When your life depends on how fast and accurate you can hit your target, you can get very good fast, he said. I remembered that when I was on the gymnastics team in high school, I could do things in meets that I was incapable of doing in practice. It seemed I had double the strength and coordination. It was something in me that came alive at a higher level when all eyes were on me, and what I did really counted in a score versus practice. It was determination and concentration, possibly influenced by adrenaline, making the body do something it didn't normally do. Whatever it was, I became super quick and super accurate when it came to shooting the machine gun. I could hit immediately whatever I saw as far as my bullets could reach. It took a while to gain that coordination, but once found it was there. Most all the machine gunners were of the same as far as quickness and accuracy went. Of course, in an assault helicopter company of Hueys, we had one heck of a lot of practice shooting the machine gun under life and death situations. Every crew chief and gunner probably shot on average 1,800 rounds per day in 1968, sometimes 3,000 rounds. Everything takes practice. No one in Vietnam could claim that much shooting. We were the best, and there was a big reason for that. And it certainly helped us, as the enemy knew that if we could see him, he was dead. And we could see a lot from the air. I didn't feel all that air sick with the machine gun checkout. I was probably too busy concentrating. I remember people telling me that helicopter aerial machine gunners killed more VC and NVA than the infantry did. I have no idea, of course, if that was or is true. I was never really interested in killing anyone anyway, but in the back of my mind I figured that if the army as a whole could kill a lot of the enemy, then they may give up and we would win the war. Very morbid, wishful thinking, I suppose. I was beginning to think, as was an indication on the bunker line, that our army was not doing so well in Vietnam. But maybe things were different way out in the field where the real war was going on, where the everyday and everywhere life and death struggles were going on.